You guys have it, or is it not ready?
There we go.
Okay. So can you tell me which one is the riot in Los Angeles and which is the celebration for the Eagles? That's the point.
Yeah. Where's the National Guard?
In part,
I have a question.
Yeah. So, well, the difference is there's an agenda.
In a shocking turn during a live broadcast of The View, Whoopi Goldberg attempted to deflect and downplay the explosive controversy surrounding the recent riots in Los Angeles, as images of burning streets, smashed storefronts, and federal troops filled American screens. Goldberg's tone-deaf remarks ignited a firestorm of backlash. What followed was a collision of media narrative, political rhetoric, and public outrage, all centered on one of the most volatile episodes in recent U.S. history. Tonight, we break down how Whoopi Goldberg's dismissive response to the L.A. riots has fueled outrage, exposed cracks in media accountability, and redefined how Americans see the line between commentary and complicity. The city of Los Angeles has long been a powder keg of cultural tension, economic disparity, and racial injustice, a grim legacy shaped by both historical neglect and systemic failures. From the 1965 Watts Uprising to the 1992 Rodney King riots, LA has borne witness to violent eruptions when citizens felt unseen, unheard, and unprotected. The latest unrest, however, arrived amid a perfect storm, with a nation already fractured by political polarization, digital disinformation, and a crumbling faith in its institutions. The events that sparked the current wave of violence can be traced to the controversial arrest and subsequent death of 27-year-old Marcus Deshaun Taylor, a black man pulled from his car in South Central LA by plainclothes federal officers on May 30th, 2025. Video of the incident, first uploaded to social media before making national headlines, showed Taylor being forcibly subdued by agents without body cameras. Within hours, neighborhoods were mobilized, protests erupted, and by nightfall, the city was in chaos. Buildings were set ablaze across Crenshaw and Mid-City. Retail districts like Melrose Avenue, already battered by economic downturns, were looted. The Los Angeles Police Department, overwhelmed by the scale of the unrest, quickly ceded control of certain districts. Governor Gavin Newsom declared a state of emergency, requesting federal assistance. Within 48 hours, nearly 5,000 National Guard troops and active duty Marines were deployed throughout the city, their Humvees patrolling residential areas while helicopters thumped overhead. The federal response, fast, forceful, and highly visible, drew sharp criticism from civil liberties advocates. Footage of troops detaining protesters, often without clearly identified legal authority, echoed scenes from autocratic regimes rather than a democratic republic. The federal government, invoking the Insurrection Act, insisted that law and order had to be restored at any cost. National media scrambled to cover the rapidly unfolding disaster. Cable networks looped graphic footage of looting and fires. Social media became a war zone of unverified videos, conspiracy theories, and real-time updates. While some outlets highlighted the root causes, systemic injustice, economic despair, and the militarization of policing, others leaned into narratives that painted protesters as anarchists and outside agitators. It was against this chaotic backdrop that The View, ABC's daytime talk show known for its blend of celebrity commentary and political debate, chose to tackle the topic on June 2nd. The segment, expected to offer a range of perspectives, quickly became a lightning rod when co-host Whoopi Goldberg appeared to downplay the seriousness of the situation. As the show's opening montage faded and the studio lights rose, the cast of The View appeared visibly tense. Joy Behar opened the segment with a clipped reference to the riots. Well, the City of Angels looks more like a war zone right now. The panel moved quickly into discussing federal involvement, protest ethics, and political accountability. But it was Whoopi Goldberg's remarks that caught immediate attention. Midway through the segment, Goldberg cut in during a heated exchange between Behar and conservative co-host Alyssa Farah Griffin. "Let's just be real," she said. "This is LA. This city has been through worse. People are upset. And yeah, sometimes that looks messy, but let's not act like this is the end of the world." The statement was met with stunned silence before Sunny Hostin tried to steer the conversation back to the legal implications of deploying federal troops. But Goldberg wasn't finished. "I'm not condoning violence," she continued, "but let's stop pretending like property damage matters more than people's pain. The media is always quick to show a burning car, never the years of injustice that led to it. That sentiment, though not without merit in activist circles, was immediately controversial when juxtaposed against live images of LA neighborhoods reduced to ash. Critics argued that Goldberg's remarks minimized the severity of the violence and ignored the lives and livelihoods disrupted in the process. While protesters marched for justice, many LA residents, especially immigrants and working-class families, found themselves caught in the crossfire of destruction. Within hours, clips of Goldberg's comments were circulating online, accompanied by hashtags like Aguar, Whoopi Whitewash, and Dowa Media Bias. Conservative media seized on the moment, labeling Goldberg a riot apologist. Tucker Carlson devoted a segment to the clip, accusing her of defending lawlessness and undermining civil order. Backlash wasn't limited to political opponents. Some progressive activists criticized Goldberg for using progressive rhetoric to excuse reckless behavior. LA business owners, including many minority entrepreneurs, expressed outrage that the violence against their establishments was being rhetorically dismissed by a multimillionaire celebrity seated safely in a Manhattan studio. In response to the uproar, ABC issued a statement clarifying that the views expressed on The View are those of the hosts and not necessarily those of the network. Goldberg herself did not issue an immediate apology or clarification, instead doubling down in a follow-up episode. If you're more upset about broken glass than broken lives, maybe check your priorities, she stated. The fallout only intensified. Local journalists covering the riots directly contradicted Goldberg's framing, describing neighborhoods in utter collapse. Emergency services reported over 300 injuries, dozens of arson investigations, and at least 4 fatalities, including a small business owner defending his store and a 14-year-old caught in the crossfire. The ripple effect from Whoopi Goldberg's comments was immediate, cutting across media ecosystems, political affiliations, and community lines. Within hours of the segment airing, prominent figures in politics, entertainment, and journalism weighed in. Some defending Goldberg's broader point about injustice, others condemning what they perceived as a reckless downplay of violence and disorder. Among the earliest responses came from Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass. Speaking at a late-night press conference, Bass stated pointedly, "This city is hurting. People are scared. They're watching their neighborhoods fall apart. And while I appreciate the national discourse, I urge all public figures, especially those with large platforms, to exercise care and responsibility. We cannot afford to minimize what's happening here." The following morning, the Los Angeles Times published a blistering editorial titled, "The View from Afar is Not the View from LA," arguing that Goldberg's remarks reflected a dangerous detachment from the on-the-ground reality. The paper highlighted interviews with residents whose homes had been destroyed, families seeking refuge at local shelters, and small business owners, many of them first-generation immigrants, who had lost everything. The editorial asked a simple but powerful question: when does social commentary become complicity? Local leaders echoed similar sentiments. Council member Hugo Soto Martinez, a progressive voice often critical of law enforcement excesses, said in a televised interview, "We fight for justice every day, but we do not justify burning down our own communities. Let's not confuse structural rage with strategic resistance, and let's not let celebrities speak over the people actually living through this." At the national level, Goldberg's remarks became political ammunition. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, a leading voice on the Republican right, lambasted her on social media. "This is the new normal for the liberal elite," he tweeted. "Minimize violence, excuse chaos, and then act shocked when people lose faith in media." Former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley also weighed in, saying, "If Whoopi Goldberg thinks violence is acceptable, she should speak to the parents of the 14-year-old girl killed in Watts last night. Even inside the entertainment industry, reactions were far from monolithic. Fellow actress and civil rights advocate Viola Davis offered a more tempered view in an Instagram post. "I believe Whoopi's heart is in the right place. She's pointing to a bigger issue. But intent does not erase impact. Pain is pain. Loss is loss. We must speak carefully in times of crisis." From the activist community, the reactions were split. Black Lives Matter LA issued a nuanced statement. "We understand the emotion. behind Ms. Goldberg's words, but we must also recognize that reckless acts during protest jeopardize lives and distort our mission. This movement is about transformation, not destruction. Meanwhile, victims of the violence emerged to share their side of the story. A viral video circulated featuring Samuel Hernandez, a Mexican-American mechanic whose garage was torched during the first night of riots. Standing before the ruins of his business, Hernandez said, "I worked 22 years for this, all gone in one night. And now someone on TV says it's just messy, that it's not the end of the world. It's the end of my world." Media watchdog organizations like Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, and Accuracy.org released reports tracking the public perception fallout. According to one poll conducted by Morning Consult 2 days after the broadcast, 62% of respondents who watched Goldberg's segment said it made them less likely to trust televised commentary on civil unrest. ABC found itself in a delicate position. Although The View is a ratings juggernaut, internal sources told media outlets that the network was monitoring the backlash closely. Executives feared advertiser withdrawal, especially as major sponsors, like Procter & Gamble and AT&T, received pressure from advocacy groups to distance themselves from the show. As the controversy continued to snowball, Goldberg finally issued a brief clarification at the top of The View's next broadcast. "Let me say something straight," she told the audience. "I'm not here to excuse any act of violence. I'm here to call attention to why these things happen. If I sounded dismissive, that was not my intention. People are hurting on every side of this. But for many, the damage was already done." What unfolded in the days after Goldberg's controversial remarks wasn't just a media cycle. It was a cultural referendum on who gets to narrate crisis and how those narratives shape national memory. According to Dr. Talia Jenkins, a media sociologist at Stanford University, this moment reveals the deep fissures in our media landscape. There's a growing distrust of celebrity commentary when it lacks proximity to real suffering. Dr. Jenkins points to a broader phenomenon she calls narrative detachment, where highly visible media figures, despite their intent, offer sweeping commentary that fails to reflect the complexity of on-the-ground realities. When Goldberg framed the riots as messy, she was deploying language that can seem minimizing to those living in fear, Jenkins explains. In an age where everyone has a platform, precision of language matters more than ever. Other experts focused on the psychological impact of such commentary. Dr. Raymond Wu, a trauma psychologist who works with communities affected by urban violence, explains that dismissive public statements can re-traumatize victims. People feel erased, he says. They've lost homes, loved ones, and livelihoods. And when someone with a national platform seems to minimize that, it intensifies the psychological toll. At the core of this debate is the question of moral authority. In polarized times, celebrities are often expected to speak out, but when they do, the margin for error shrinks. Goldberg's remarks have become a textbook example of how those expectations can backfire when nuance is lost in real time. The long-term impact on The View may be mixed. While the show's ratings actually spiked during the controversy, drawing nearly 4.2 million viewers the day after the segment aired, that short-term boost could come at a reputational cost. ABC insiders report that internal discussions are underway about creating crisis response protocols for live hosts, suggesting a future where spontaneous debate might be tempered by legal oversight. For the broader media industry, the Goldberg controversy adds fuel to ongoing debates about journalistic ethics and infotainment. As more Americans turn to opinion-driven platforms for news, the line between analysis and advocacy continues to blur, and when missteps happen, they aren't easily forgotten. They're screenshotted, reposted, dissected, and immortalized. In the political realm, the controversy has already influenced campaign narratives. Republican candidates across multiple state races have cited Goldberg's remarks in speeches about media elitism and urban lawlessness. In a campaign rally in Texas, Senate hopeful Rob Jenkins told a cheering crowd, "They burn." Your stores then go on TV and call it just messy. Is that the America you want? Democrats, on the other hand, find themselves on shaky ground. While many leaders agree that systemic injustice must be addressed, few are willing to publicly endorse language that could be interpreted as tolerating civil unrest. Several progressive PACs have reportedly advised candidates to avoid using terms like uprising or resistance in connection with the LA riots for fear of alienating moderate voters. Perhaps the most enduring impact of the incident, however, is cultural. In the age of decentralized information, moments like this become symbols, shorthand for larger struggles over truth, accountability, and representation. For some, Goldberg's comments signify empathy misapplied. For others, they reflect the ongoing discomfort with confronting the conditions that give rise to rebellion in the first place. As the dust begins to settle in LA, literally and metaphorically, the national reckoning continues. Media, politics, and public opinion have collided in a combustible narrative that, much like the city itself, remains smoldering just beneath the surface. What began as a daytime TV discussion has spiraled into a national flashpoint, raising questions far bigger than Whoopi Goldberg herself. In the aftermath of the LA riots, America must now grapple with who gets to speak, who gets heard, and who gets hurt when the cameras turn off. If you found this report thought-provoking, informative, or vital to understanding our current media and political climate, we invite you to support our work. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for notifications, and share this video to keep the conversation alive. In a time when noise drowns out truth, help us make space for clarity. Clarity.